Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast presented by CoolBet. Use promo code DoggerPass when making a new account to get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. 3x rollover. It's like bet deposit 200, bet 600, and then whatever money is there is yours to take away. Easy payouts, great customer service. Love our friends over at CoolBet. So if you haven't joined, well, ain't no time like the present. Cody, we're back at the Apex. How are we feeling? How are we feeling heading into this week?
Yeah, not bad actually. We always talk about the Apex and there's no live crowd and it's a small cage and the fighters don't want to be there. But this looks like a fairly violent fight card where a lot of my picks, I don't think they're the better fighter. I think they're more likely to end the kill shot at some point, and that's kind of what we're going with. So there's going to be a lot of violence. There's going to be a lot of offensive technique. Looking up and down this card, Paul, it very much does scream. Contender Series is around the corner, guys. Who wants to keep some job security? And so I do think that there's going to be a lot of knockouts and a lot of people going for it. And as such, the Apex is kind of actually a decent venue for that. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, there's nothing better than a knockout in front of a crowd of like 32 people. You really hear the roar of the crowd. I don't think any fights are better without an arena,
Yeah,
but
if you're watching it on TV though, right, it
yeah,
looks
it's
the
just
same.
as good.
And if you're
Yeah.
at the Apex, I mean, it's like catered and it's VIP service and the acoustics are so good because there's nobody there. So people that watch it at the Apex are not complaining, and people that are watching it at home are not really complaining. It's the fighters that are complaining. That's fair. But I look at this card and I look at Chidi and Njokuani's 37 years old. Elizeu Zaleski to Santos is 38 years old. Holobaugh is 38 years old. Cody Gibson's 37 years old. Ryan Spann's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. AJ Cunningham arguably shouldn't be on the roster. Priscilla Cachoeira is 36 and on a bad run. There's a lot of people here that are fighting for their jobs. And as much as you can say, I like the A side in a lot of these fights, or I like the B side in some of these fights, is that nobody here is bona fide. The only two top fighters on the card is the main event, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. They're the only ranked fighters. The rest of it is people that are not ranked and probably won't be ranked for quite some time. A couple okay prospects in the mix. You know, you look
Mhm.
at Josias Musasa. I think he's going to be good. Kevin Vallejos, I think he's going to be good, but they're so young and green right now. They're not very good at this very moment in time. So, anyways, like I always say, that's why I got you, man. We're gonna float some ideas back and forth. We're gonna discuss it, and we're gonna figure out who are gonna win these things.
You're usually the chalk guy, and
I
I'm the
got some
dog
dogs
guy.
here.
And
Yeah,
I
this is
look through this card, Cody, and I
yeah.
say, PRP, how are you going to make a PRP out of this absolute minefield? Because I can make cases for like just
Everybody.
about anybody
Yeah.
on this card to some degree. But anyway, main event, we got Marvin Vettori taking on Roman Dolidze. Marvin at Coolbet is a minus 156 favorite. Roman can be had for plus 132. Obviously, this is the rematch between the two of them since the last time that they fought. Marvin's coming off of shoulder surgery. He lost to Cannonier in a 5-round war. Got beaten up pretty bad in that fight, but it is with it when you take on Cannonier, when you go the distance with Jared Cannonier, that's a tough out for anybody on any given night. And then the fight before that for him was Roman Dolidze. Their first fight, I mean, Roman won round one. I think Pat Sutherland or something was like the judge that scored at 30-27 for Marvin. Like, going back, just like going back watching that fight, it's like, I know the stats may tell you a slightly different story that like Marvin edged him out, but it's like Marvin thankfully has an absolute brick for a head because he ate a shot. But we've seen this with Marvin a million times. Guy's durability is 100% on point. I like Vettori to get the job done here. I think the fact that this is 5 rounds as opposed to the 3 rounds helps him even more because as that fight was wearing on, Marvin was starting to take a little bit more control, starting to widen the gap in terms of the strikes landed in that fight. The only concern is that like 6 months ago, there's pictures on his Instagram of him, recovering from shoulder surgery. And then he went on social media about like 2 months ago and said, "I'm ready for a fight. Give me anybody." And they're running it back with a familiar foe in Roman Dolidze. He already has the recipe for beating this guy. It's going to be dangerous in round one, but outside of that, that my only hesitancy that I have in terms of making a bet right now is that I think that you're probably going to get a better price on Marvin after round one. That's certainly the case that played out the first time these two guys fought. Roman's super, super tough, super durable. He's been 5 rounds once, and when he went 5 rounds, it was against Nasruddin Imavov, and that whole situation, like, he really, like, I mean, he never really got much going, never got any sort of output going whatsoever in that fight. I don't know if he's necessarily built for these types of opponents. Marvin's brick head is his biggest attribute in this fight. Only concern for him is the injury. Did he come back too soon? Is he not going to have the cardio that we would expect from him? But all that being equal, Marv's the pick. I'll be looking for him probably more so in the live market, though. What's your take here?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing in that I'm going to end up with Roman deletes, but I come full circle on the thing and ended up with Roman deletes. I agree with all your points and that Marvin Vettori on at first look anyways. He's 6 years younger. He's fought 6 5-round fights in his career. He's never been knocked down. He's never been knocked out. This guy, like Paul said, has a cinder block of a head. He's very, very durable. And you've seen him again. You've seen him fight 25 minutes on numerous occasions. The last time they fought, I thought Marvin Vettori won the fight, and he won it with a volume-based attack. You're running this thing back. He's fought once in between. Roman Dolidze has fought 3 times in between. What's really changed? But man, the more I think about it, you're gonna want to bet Marvin Vettori live, like Paul said. After not only does he lose the first round, he very may well lose the first 2 rounds, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can get a very good number on him, and then figures to win 3, 4, and 5 if that's how he's going to extend it. Deletes again. Paul touched on all this. We've seen him fight 5 rounds once against Imavov, and he completely gasses. So why do I come back to it? I'll tell you why I come back to it. This is a Marvin Vettori that's going to get off to a very slow start, and I think drop those first 2 rounds. If he loses the first two, he now needs to sweep the last three. So this is going to be a close fight. It's going to be I think it's going to go to decision. They're both durable. They both hit, but they're both durable guys. It's probably going to go to decision. And then when it goes to decision, are they going to look at the volume from Vettori or the heavier power from Roman Deletes? Could be a split decision if you're the kind of guy that wants to chase one of those fight ends by split decision. I think this is going to be one of them. But for me, it's a dog or pass situation. And with that, I take Roman Deletes. Now, you go and you look back that last time that him and Roman fight, okay? I think Marvin Vettori is winning the first round, and then they clash heads, and
Mm-hmm.
Roman really plows Vettori with the top of his head right to Vettori's jaw. He takes like 45 seconds and tells the ref, "I'm okay," and then Roman comes and smashes him with a big right hand. To me, that won the first round for Roman. The second round's very close. The third round's very close, but at the end of the third round, Roman Dolidze throws his hands up in the air like he's won and is like, "Yes, this is a huge win for me." And Marvin slumps his head down as if, "Shit, I just lost this fight." Marvin feels he lost that fight. Roman feels he won that fight. They go to decision and they end up going with some volume over the actual damage. But in that specific moment, if there was a fourth and fifth round, I think Roman starts to come on. Now, since that moment, as we talked about, well, Vettori fights Jared Cannonier. But here's the problem for Vettori. His fight with Jack Hermanson. Up until that point, he hadn't taken a bunch of career damage. Hermanson lands 122 significant strikes on him, right? 2 fights later, the rematch with Israel Adesanya, he lands 96 on him. Paulo Costa puts up 163. The very next fight, Robert Whitaker, thank God it was only a 3-rounder, but puts up 74, fights Roman in a fight where he got hit plenty of times, 71, and then the fight with Jared Cannonier where he got hit 241 significant times. There's a stretch of 6 fights there where thank God he's got a cinder block head because all he does is get hit. He's not that athletic. He's not that fast. He mostly just stands in front of you, but this boy can take one hell of a punch. Now you're taking that same guy, you're giving him shoulder surgery, as Paul already touched on, but also he hasn't fought in like 21 months. So it's been nearly 2 years. And he's a rhythm-based guy. He needs to get into his zone where he starts to land some volume. Being that it's been a near 2 year long layoff, he hasn't had, this type of, yeah, okay, it's the apex, I got it. It's a 5-round situation right off the bench against a top guy who you've already fought once, but it was a very, very close fight. I just feel like Roman's going to be able to back him up. Roman, in comparison, since he lost to him, he fought Imavov for 5 rounds, right? Going 5 rounds at Imavov, Izzy couldn't even go two, so that's still something. And then he smashes up Anthony Smith, no stock in that. takes down Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland slipped a rib. You can see his striking's looking better in those fights. You can see he is developing. But yeah, buyer beware. He's 36. He's only ever fought 5 rounds once in his career, and he flat out gassed in that. It's sorry, my apologies there. It's what he's been saying kind of in the lead up to this fight, where he comes in and he says, listen, I know my path to the title. I rematch Marvin Vettori. I beat him. I get a rematch with Imavov. I know I can beat Imavov. I was in terrible shape last time. I should have taken the fight. I was so injured. I'll rematch him and beat him. And I beat those two guys. It sets me up for the winner of Dreykus versus Hamzat. That's what he's thinking. Vettori, meanwhile, I seen him online like with Izzy's last fight with Imavov. Izzy loses, and Vettori puts, "Damn, Israel really needs to get his confidence up. He needs an easy win. He should fight me again." Ha ha. And he's like laughing at himself as if he's on a bad run. He's losing fights. He hasn't fought in near 2 years. Yeah, you're trying to draw a big fight, but I just feel like a low confidence Marvin Vettori on a 2 year long layoff with massive surgery, a shoulder surgery, is not the best version of him. Whereas Roman at 36, yeah, this is kind of, his peak form, but he's still in his peak form and he's willing to throw down. These Georgian guys age like fine wine. Roman Dolidze has just really got to apply some pressure. So he's the betting underdog. It's a total dogger pass for me. And in such, I end up with the underdog, Roman Dolidze.
All right, co-main event. We've got Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos taking on Chidi Bang Bang and Njokuani. Minus 196 for dos Santos, plus 160 for Chidi. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Chidi Bang Bang as the underdog. But again, this is another like coin flip type fight where it really just comes down to who's able to really, establish their game first. With Elizeu Zaleski, he's 38 years old. He's a capoeira guy at heart. This guy is a capoeira guy. He wants to stand at range and deliver some absolute smokers on you at range. You look at his career, his best career wins, and it's like notable names, man. He knocks out Amari Akhmedov. He knocks out Sean Strickland. He knocks out well, he should have knocked out Benoit Saint Denis, but what a ravaging beating he put on him. But then at some point, it's like the injuries start to compound on him. In all of his UFC fights, he's only ever taken down an opponent more than twice on one occasion, which is his fight against Randy Brown. He's not a wrestler. He's not a guy that wants to really clinch on you up against the cage. And that's how he's going to beat Chidi and Njokuani. If not,
Hmm.
what happens is that this once really talented athletic striker on the outside wants to set up these spins. You're not spinning close to an opponent, you're spinning from the outside. That's where he's most comfortable, right? Um, I just feel like he's lost a little bit of a step. He's not quite as fast anymore. Now he's relying on try to get a hold of him. His last 3 fights, him versus Renat Fakhretdinov, he loses the first 2 rounds. He gets outstruck. He gets taken down. The third round, I don't even call it a 10-8, but it's like, yeah, he absolutely caught Renat Fakhretdinov, hurt him, grabbed onto a submission attempt, didn't get it, round ends. They called it a draw. Could have lost that fight. His fight with Randy Brown. This is the key to breaking down his fight with Chidi Bang Bang, is that Randy Brown's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. He struggles mightily against a big, tall, long opponent because where he wants to naturally stay to the outside, he's not getting anything done from the outside. Chidi's 6'3" with an 80-inch reach. He's a giant. You look at Chidi's 3 fight losing streak in the UFC. Yeah, that's at 185 pounds. This is 170. He's undefeated in his career at 170 because he's huge. So you really need to penetrate through, and he had no success doing that against Randy Brown. What he did try to do is wrestle for the first time in his career. I'm going to try to take this guy down. And he gets 4 takedowns in 7 attempts, about 5 minutes of control time. But ultimately, he's not landing anything. No ground and pound, no submission attempts. When Randy Brown eventually just gets back up, he goes back to front kicks up the middle and jabs, and it works incredibly well. Chidi Bang Bang is a black belt in BJJ, but also he's got tons of Muay Thai experience. He's a credible striker. Knocked out guys like Marc-Andre Barrios in mere seconds. The guy hits hard, but he's also just like proportionately a very, very large man. He's a middleweight in every sense of the word. So fighting him at middleweight, you might be able to catch him, and he might be able to catch you. But fighting him at 170, you really got to lean on him in the clinch up against the cage.
No, that's a
Jared
bad
Gordon
idea.
missed weight his last time out, so it wasn't a good version of Jared Gordon. But Jared Gordon takes him down twice in the first round. Chidi pops back up both times like nothing. He presses him in the cage, and now you've got this guy who's 6'3" with a Muay Thai clinch on you, plowing you with knees to the body. So it's like you got to be all the way in or all the way out, and I don't feel like Elizeu is that guy. Could he catch him? Possibly. But again, he's going to really have to explode and get on the inside. And at 38, I don't know how much damage he's willing to take in those spots. The line is built like this because he's just smoked Zachary Scroggin, but what does that really mean? What does that really count for? Take that off the table. He hasn't had a quality victory in 2 years, and it was a split decision over Bubakar Nurmagomedov. That's not a quality victory. His fight with Benoit Saint Denis, they can't. That was dope. two things here. Benoit makes his UFC debut on short notice, up at 170 pounds, and the fight's almost 4 years ago. So he's just it's almost a case of what have you done for me lately, and he's a little bit short on that. So for him to be the betting favorite, I just can't get behind that. I don't love betting Chidi, but at 170, I mean, he's a big guy. Riz McKee, they'll say split decision. Riz McKee went like 1 for 12 on takedown attempts. Did nothing but hold him up against the cage, and Chidi's able to double him up. That might be the case here, but Riz McKee stuck to that game plan. Elizeu's not going to. He's a flashy guy. He's a fan thrilling guy. He's not just gonna spam cage control up against Chidi for 15 minutes. It's not who he is. So he's gonna look to engage him in a standing battle, and seeing how he struggled against Randy Brown, I think he'll have the same struggles here. So I'll take Chidi and Njokuani to get the win.
Um, so standing up against the cage, I think that is the wrong place to be against Chidi. You saw it in the Jared Gooden fight. Is like if you end up in that clinch in that Muay Thai clinch up against the cage, like that's literally what absolutely cooked Jared Gooden. They're just up there. He was just landing knees, elbows, everything in tight. Muay Thai guy. He loves it in that range. But Jared Gooden did come out immediately at the start of that fight, landed a takedown. Here's my struggle with Zaleski and trying to lay a minus 200 on him. Is that I just don't know if he's actually gonna do the game plan, which you alluded to, the wrestling. The problem in the Randy Brown fight is round one, he literally shoots zero takedowns. Or he shot one. I think it was like a lazy takedown at one point early in the fight. He only has 7 seconds of control time for that entire round. Round two, he comes out and he realizes, well, the only game plan that I have that is going to be effective here is wrestling. He gets 3 of 5 takedowns. Randy Brown's got a half decent submission game, jiu-jitsu game. He's able to get out of submission attempts, but Zaleski had him with one pretty tight in round two, and then round three, the
But
the
Randy Brown ends up that round taking Zaleski's back and putting him in a rear naked choke. Like
yes,
he
that he
dominates
reversed
three and
it.
a
He
half, four
reversed it at the end
minutes
of the
of it
round,
and then
correct?
loses it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Chidi's I just gotta hope that if it hits the ground, Chidi can scramble. But you're right. Well, I don't know what you're gonna get to, but I want to hear it. Because in my opinion, Elizeu could have won that fight still maybe won round two, but he doesn't shoot the takedowns until late in round three. Like he doesn't stick to the game plan.
He's got to stick to the game plan. I mean, if he wants to keep his job, he's got to stick to the game plan here. Because hanging out at range, giving up 7 inches of reach, I don't care how many capoeira kicks. Of course, one could land. Like it's punchy, kicky. And Zaleski, if he lands a spinning back kick, it's just so low probability. It's very, very unlikely. And he may even, the range that these guys are going to be hanging at, like he may just straight up whiff on something like that if he does it. But I'm of the opinion I think that the UFC's done a half decent job of like at least recently of keeping Chidi away from anybody who has any sort of inclination to grapple him. Jared Gooden was able to get 2 takedowns early, but like bad weight cut. Plus, he's not a good wrestler in the first place. Wasn't really able to stick to that game plan. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna avoid the money line entirely, but I see like Zaleski's by sub plus 1,000. Um, I think that's one of those kind of crazy props that could hit this week.
That's
In
fair.
terms of money line,
Yeah.
man, it's another pass because of the number. Like I see a lot of the same things that you do, but I've never really been a Chidi guy. I think he's incredibly flawed. I don't really rate that Jared Gooden fight all that much. I think it was like Gooden was like completely lost out there. Like after he shot a couple takedowns, it didn't really work. He just stood up against the
He
cage,
quit. Yeah, it
hung
was a
out
bad
in
weight cut.
clinch, and just ate shots. Like
Yeah.
that fight could have been ended because really Jared Gooden gave himself no chance to come back in that fight.
Mm.
Reese McKee doesn't wrestle whatsoever. I mean, we're only 2 fights removed from him getting deaded by Mikey O'Baby.
Yeah,
So
185. And he
that's
loses
fair.
to Albert
That is fair.
Jurayev at 185. And you know what I mean? Like at middleweight, these guys are just as big as and strong as him. But at 170, it's the proportions. So we got to move on from this co-main event. But the last thing I will say is, Paul, you're right. They've done a really good job of keeping Chidi away from grapplers. Don't be fooled into thinking Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos is a grappler. He's shot and takedowns in one of his last 6 fights. That being the Randy Brown fight is the only time he decided in his last 6 over the last 3 years, hey, I'm going to take this guy down. And he has a 20% takedown accuracy in his UFC career. So he is not a wrestler. He is not a grappler. He's a capoeira guy that one day got old and realized I should probably start using some of these other skills to slow this thing down. If you got a pink slip on the line, you holding on to Chidi Bang Bang up against the cage for 15 minutes is probably not enough to save you your job. You making this a thrilling fight for the fans or the fan, because it is the UFC Apex. That's what they want. And I just hope that someone gets in his ear and says, "Make this a fun fight." And if he does that, I can sneak one out. But it's the second fight for me that's dog or pass, really, and so I'm ending up with the underdog Chidi Bang Bang.
I'd say being fooled into thinking that he was a grappler would be me loading up on the minus 205. Me playing a 10-1 prop.
Yeah, that's
Not
yeah.
so much being
Right.
fooled, just me going, there is an outside chance that like Zaleski takes the path of least resistance. If this like I'm with you. It's like if I'm forced to take a money line play here, it would be Chidi. I don't plan on betting Chidi. But yeah, if this fight plays out as a striking affair, I don't Zaleski's just giving up way too much in terms of size and everything like that for me to feel good about it. But yes, let's move on to the next fight. We got another very trustworthy favorite and Alexander Hernandez. He takes on Kurt Holobaugh. Hernandez is a minus 208 favorite. Holobaugh can be had for plus 170. Who you got here, Code?
Oh man, Alexander Hernandez. I mean, this guy really seemed like he was going to be a big deal at one point in time. Comes to the UFC and everybody remembers he smashes Beneil Dariush 42 seconds. He follows that up by beating Olivier Aubé-Mercier, who went on to win $2 million in PFL tournaments. Like, what a great way to announce yourself, beating two legitimate guys to this day. Excellent names to have on your record. And then, yeah, he talked all types of shit about Donald Cerrone, and it's largely been downhill since then. I don't know if he's just a mental case where he has to have this huge self-confidence going in, but anytime he lacks any type of self-doubt in himself, or anytime he starts to question himself in the slightest bit, that's when he starts to fold up a little bit. A lot of these fights, it's like he is the more athletic, better guy, hits harder, better wrestling, training at a higher level, training at altitude, originally at Factory X Muay Thai, and then changing camps a little bit. But the guy's, a complete package fighter, and then you see him in these fights and he just struggles to put it all together. I don't know that he'll ever realize that potential that was once kind of bestowed upon him, but I think that this is still a winnable fight for him. It's just what version of him is going to come through. Now, keep in mind, it's like he beats Jim Miller, which is really the last time he's looked good. And then after he beats Jim Miller, he decides he's going to move down to 145 pounds. Fought Bill Algeo at 145 and just got outworked, out hustled. Bill's maneuvering him around. Bill's outworking him. Bill's taking him down. And beyond that, just out hustling him, outlanding him, and gets the decision win. His next fight versus Damon Jackson, he misses weight at 145, coming in at 150. In the Damon Jackson fight, Damon Jackson is like twice his size, twice as
Mm.
strong as him, takes him down at will. Like when Damon decides, hey, I want this fight on the ground, he just shoots the takedown and just mauls him over. It was actually quite impressive. And this is considering you're moving down to his weight class and you missed weight by 5 pounds. You're a lightweight coming down. So after that, he abandons it altogether and he moves back up to 55. And then in that Osterd Hubbard fight, you do see where he's just not that physically strong at 155 pounds, his Alexander Hernandez. He's built like a brick shithouse, but he's not that strong at 55. He tried to go to 145 thinking he could overwhelm and almost bully opponents, but the weight cut's just too hard on him. He's now 32 years old. He's kind of an in-between type stage. Whenever you're betting him at a 2-1 favorite, it's not something that you're really going. And listen, he's my pick here, but whenever you're betting him at a minus 200 status, 2-1, it's not going to feel good. His last two fights, it's a split decision over Austin Hubbard in a fight that he tires, and a split decision loss to Damon Jackson, a guy that's just clinging on to a roster spot and is a weight class lower than him. Those are close fights. These are fights that could go either way. These are fights that you're relying on the judges. At minus 200, that's not the kind of style that you want to be getting behind. For Kurt Holobaugh, meanwhile, Holobaugh's 38, and he's definitely wily and he's scrappy. And if you want to look by the numbers, it's like he does put up higher volume than Alexander Hernandez. Is that when you watch him, he's very much, you need to stay flat-footed in front of him. He wants to fight you linearly on a straight line, preferably in the pocket. When you look at Alexander Hernandez, yeah, he's a little bit lower volume, but he moves his feet pretty good. He's good at like darting around the ring and moving and causing you to move towards him. Guys like Damon Jackson are able to mix in that offensive wrestling and take him down. But beyond that, guy like Kurt Holobaugh, yeah, he's a BJJ black belt. I don't know that his wrestling is necessarily good enough to take down Alexander Hernandez, at least not do it consistently. In terms of landing that volume, you're really going to be chasing him around most of the time where you're going to be walking into counters, over and over. His last fight with Kenan Krzyzewski, I thought he won the first 2 rounds. In the third, he's tired and he is getting landed on. It's a good fight. It's a fun fight. It's a fight of the night type of performance, even though it didn't win fight of the night. Really fun back and forth brawl, but like he's there to get hit. Is that he needs someone that wants to engage him right directly in front of him. Don't think Alexander Hernandez is going to do that. You go back to the Trey Ogden fight, he got taken down 3 times. He can't get back up. His own fight with Austin Hubbard, he had been taken down twice, but he got bailed out by throwing up that triangle choke. Another guy that used to fight at 145 pounds himself, you go back in the day, Kurt Holobaugh's a 45er, but at this stage of his career is preferring to fight at 155. So that doesn't scream giant guy for the weight class, going to be able to take down Hernandez. Don't think he's fast enough to catch up to Hernandez. And even though I've always questioned Hernandez's cardio, I do think it's actually better than Holobaugh's. So as much as I want to take the underdog, there's certain underdogs that I'm willing to take that shot on and pull the trigger on. There's other ones that really just don't make sense. Like if they fight 10 times, how many times are they getting it for my dollar's worth? In this instance, I got a soft spot for Hernandez, and then he goes out here, does a modicum of what he's capable of doing, which would be enough to get the job done. So sign me up for Alex the Great Ape Hernandez. Don't know what kind of name that is. But if he comes in confident and he does what he's supposed to, I see him getting the win. So he will be my pick.
I mean, we kind of say the same things about Hernandez. Eventually, you're kind of like, okay, what's wrong with this guy? Um, because yeah, we say, he's the better athlete. He's got better
Always.
footwork. The problem is that a lot of his you know, backing up, getting hit on angles and stuff is like he's proven time and time again he doesn't really have the cardio to do that effectively, to do that really effectively over the course of 3 rounds. It's always risky business backing him with a minus next to his name. Obviously, common opponent between the two of them, Hubbard, it was a split decision. It was close, competitive, but like I thought Hernandez won that fight pretty cleanly. I thought maybe the split was a little bit of a reach. Holobaugh obviously subbed Hubbard to win the Ultimate Fighter. Uh, a few fights back. I don't know. It's one of those fights. It's like I have no intention of betting. I just I'm almost just like do not touch anytime there's a minus next to Hernandez's name
That's
at this
fair.
point. But is Kurt going to be able to back him up? Is Kurt if Kurt can turn this into his style of fight, make this dog fight, stay inside, and then eat shots in close proximity. That's I think where the biggest problems I suppose happen for Kurt at this stage in his career. Um, He's had a nice little run since he returned, but it's like Roundy Barcelos, who's a bantamweight, knocked him out a few or 6 years ago
Yeah, he won the first
in the
two rounds
UFC.
against Rowney too, and then he got unfortunately caught. His fight with Shane Burgos, he dropped Shane Burgos, and then he got armbarred. Like Holobaugh is a badass, but yeah, will he be able to chase him down and make it his type of fight? It is the Apex, which should help him, but there's no live crowd, and Holobaugh's a feed off the crowd kind of guy, whereas Hernandez is I don't know, maybe the crowd gets to him, maybe the excitement gets to him. I'm not sure. He's a worthy underdog. As you mentioned at the top of the show, you can make a strong case for all the underdogs. Kurt's another one. I can't deny that. But
Yeah,
yeah, on a personal level, I'm going Hernandez. What was your take? Like, what was your final thought on it?
it is dog or pass, but
Dogger
I
pass.
haven't bet anything on Kurt. I mean, this entire card and like people, I'm sure in like the YouTube comments are gonna be like, these guys can't agree on anything. It's just like
This is a tough
I
one.
think a lot of fights here are probably lined pretty damn good, man.
Mm.
Like when I was going through making notes, running through tape on all of these fights, I looked at like a lot of these lines and I was just like, is there really quote unquote value on a bunch of it? It's like I think this is like kind of the type of card that like nobody really wants to hear this when they tune into a show about gambling. Oh, just give me the picks, give me the locks. But it's like I don't know if it's so easy as that this week, to be perfectly honest. This is the type of card that like only the hardcore of the hardcore are betting this week. There's no, casual money betting UFC Vegas 104. When you got like we have a massive golf tournament this week. You have so much other stuff. You got conference finals for NCAA basketball. There's so much other stuff going on. It's like I feel like these markets are very, very they feel very efficient to me this week. Probably because only the hardcore of the hardcore are betting these fights this week. But it'll be dog or pass for me. But like, frankly, probably a pass. I was hoping for a better, more generous number on Holobaugh by sub, but it's like plus 700 is what they're offering right now, and it's just like it's too short. No, thank you. Damon Jackson had good submission skills as well, and he had Hernandez down for quite a bit of time and wasn't able to lock anything up. So I'm gonna pass altogether on that prop. We got Damon Blackshear taking on Cody, the Renegade Gibson, minus 455 for Blackshear, plus 350 for Gibson. I mean, I think like athletically, this isn't really particularly competitive. Damon Blackshear should have a massive, massive strength advantage over Gibson, but I mean he's getting priced that way as well. Blackshear is a little bit reckless. You see in some of his fights, he kind of lets his neck kind of hang out there against Mario Bautista. Obviously, there's the Montel Jackson fight where he just runs in, just gets
Oh.
absolutely nuked in 20 seconds. The guy's very, very volatile. My struggle here is like I don't know if Cody brings the type of talents to the cage that historically are what's needed to like get Damon out of there. I think eventually, and probably, I imagine most of these props these days are kind of short, to be perfectly honest. But I think most likely outcome here is Blackshear kind of bullies him, is able to find the back and sinks in a choke at some point over the course of the first couple rounds. Blackshear's the pick for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Blackshear as well, but I'll be honest with you, this is not just like as straightforward as you would think. I disagree with a lot of your points on this one. I think Cody Gibson is super physical. I mean, he's a giant bantamweight that wins his fights by leaning up against his opponents, taking them down. Wrestled in college, currently a high school wrestling coach, been a high school wrestling coach for like 10 years. Like his life is wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. And the fact that he cuts down to 135 always amazed me because he's a giant dude. Now, yeah, Blackshear's also 5'10". They're both 5'10". They're both considered big bantamweights. But Cody Gibson, I think, is physically stronger than him. The difference is that Cody Gibson is 7 years older than him, just had a lot of wear and tear, and where he likes to lean on guys and take them down. Blackshear's ground game is just that is the one impressive thing to him. I mean, he just choked out Cody Stamann, which is not easy to do, but the transition from that guillotine choke to the rear naked choke is like work of art, man. This guy's slick. Obviously, he hits a twister over Jose Johnson, who's not a great opponent, but to hit a twister as well. Yeah, offensively, this guy's got very, very good, solid offensive grappling. Trains at Kill Cliff FC now. He's getting quality looks. Is that for a guy that is athletic as him? He's kind of stiff in the striking. Like when he's sitting there and he's striking with opponents, it's a very much he's square to them a lot of the time. He doesn't move all that well. You can't say he's got good footwork. You can't say he's got good head movement. He is there to get hit, but he's pretty quick with his reactionary takedowns. He can get to a single leg, he can get to a double leg, eventually just create a scramble. And then once he's got an opportunity to jump on your back, he's very quick at doing that. When you look at traditional wrestler boxers, yeah, he's fought Mario Batista and he's fought what was his name? Mario Batista and yeah, I thought he also fought it doesn't matter. He's fought this
Fareed
style.
Basharat,
Fareed Basharat, I wouldn't consider a wrestler boxer. I kind of got mixed up that it was Cody Gibson that fought Miles John. Miles John's the wrestler boxer, but
which is a style that he struggled with.
which is a style that he's struggled with, right? If you can lean up against the cage, right, and really cause a lot of, he's not offensively shooting on you, you can shoot on him and cause him to carry your weight, he will start to fatigue. When you look at his fight with Brian Kelleher, he gets two easy takedowns, subs him right away. Against Chad Anhledger, a former 125-pound fighter, he's twice his size, he's a big bantamweight against a flyweight, and he takes him down 5 times and just neutralizes him. You can take a breather when you're on top of a guy who's not trying to get back up. You can breathe. Against
Yeah.
Blackshear, if it hits the ground, you're up shit's creek here, right? So it's constantly going to be moving. It's constantly going to be exerting effort. And why I said it's important that Gibson's 37 now is these weight cuts to 135 for him ain't easy, and they ain't getting any easier. And so his ability to fight a full 15 minutes at a very high pace is starting to get diminished. Whereas Blackshear is still only 30, getting quality rounds over in Killcliff. I do feel like, the longer this fight goes, he'll start to pull ahead. That combination that he hit Cody Stamann with as well before the fight hit the ground, knee up the middle, right hand off the side, absolutely buzzes Cody Stamann. And then he rolls that up into the guillotine choke, which subs 95% of the roster. I like his developments. I like what he's doing. Yes, the Montel Jackson fight, he runs straight first into a punch 18 seconds in, but where the hell's Montel Jackson? Why doesn't that guy fight more often? My God. 4 or 5 fight winning streak and just fights once a year for whatever reason. But beyond that, it's like, I don't know. Blackshear, it looks like he wants to throw a flying knee or something. Like he's like hops up his feet and just gets plowed over. You learn from those mistakes. And in his case, I hope he learned enough to realize I can strike, but my primarily path to victory here is to take them down and to outgrapple them. So use the striking, back up Cody Gibson, lean on him, take him down. I will take them on Blackshear to get the job done, but I can see the first round being sticky, and then I'm hoping second and the third we pull through.
Yeah, I was kind of watching the Analedger fight versus Gibson, and I'm like, this is all well and good, but it's like, you know, just you can't just this style does not transfer over to this Blackshear fight. Like, I'd be pretty surprised if Cody Gibson just goes out there, gets takedowns, and holds position without any sort of risk whatsoever over the course of 15 minutes. But that's neither here nor there. We got Diyar Nurgozhay taking on Brendson Ribeiro. Nurgozhay is a minus 385 favorite. Ribeiro can be after plus 300. Who you got?
I'm probably going to lose my money here on Diyar Nurgozhay because he's too big of a favorite for what you're actually getting. But I just feel at some point he's going to break on through and he's going to land something of substance. He's 27 years old, so he's still a pretty young guy. But when you watch any of the tape on him on the regional scene, he's just really stiff. So he gives me like Ebo Aslan vibes, where it's
He's
like
got
he
like a
can't
twitch.
say it again.
Got like a twitch, like Contender Series. You see him, he's like going like this constantly. He's got like some sort of like weird nervous twitch. It's strange. You see it in his like Eagle FC fights as well.
The twitch that I noticed for him, it was the Constantine, sorry, it's the Magomed Magomedov fight where halfway through the first round he starts like popping his shoulder back in place. Like it's like he's constantly popping his shoulder the entire time. I cannot figure it out.
Contender Series fight, he was doing this like literally before he even got hit. He was like he had some
Rubbing
sort of weird
himself.
twitch. It's very strange. Very strange.
Yeah, listen, I love Kazakh guys. You're from Kazakhstan, it's like I'm in, buddy. Take my money. And 27 undefeated, all of these fights. First fight, 18-second knockout, 3-minute knockout, first round leg lock, first round Kimura, 27-second head kick, 57-second knockout. If he touches you, oh no. Oh man, what if it goes longer than that? The Magomed Magomedov fight, he is gassed 2 rounds in, but he hits a third round, like he hits a second win in the third round, wins it, wins the fight. His fight with Konstantin Andreev, he is gassed 3 rounds into this fight. And it's a 5 rounder. He goes the 5 rounds. I almost feel like his body language is he's tired, but he's just such a big old yoki. He throws some big left hands at you, southpaw, that big old head kick he's got on him. Like eventually, like he just breaks on through. Now I'm sure there's not drug testing over in Eagle FC, so I need a good, clean version of him. But on the Contender Series, well, sorry, we'll talk about 2 fights back. He fights Emiliano Sordi on UAE Warriors. It's actually a pretty close fight until he hits a right hook on the side of the head. Sordi loses equilibrium. He capitalizes. If you know Sordi, talented guy, chin is gone. So that one you can see how the big strong guy eventually breaks through. He didn't look that good. And then on Contender Series, where there is drug testing, he did not look good. The first round against Bartos is fairly even. They both land 15 significant strikes. I edged it for him, but it was a very competitive fight. The second round, he's starting to pull through. It's still competitive. And then he just walks him into just a gorgeous head kick that absolutely takes everything out of his opponent, and he goes and gets the win. He's still young. He's still developing. He's still getting better, per se. But yeah, I mean, there's just not. He doesn't look like he's got a refined ground game. It doesn't look like he's a good athlete. It doesn't look like he's all that fast. It looks like he's durable and he hits hard. And that's really all there is to him. And so for that, at minus 365, he's not really the kind of guy that I'm screaming to throw my money on. It comes down to it's Brendson Ribeiro. Now, Paul, you've watched the tape. I'm sure anybody that's watching the show, watch the tape. Is that Brendson looks to be a better fighter in that he's faster. He does have better footwork. He's a better athlete. He pops out that jab. He pops out those low kicks. But he's been KO'd 4 times in the first round in his career. At some
Mhm.
point, he's going to get hit. And I just don't think he's going to hold up against it. So I expect a fairly competitive first round. I compare maybe makes it in halfway through the second type of deal. Brendson might be outworking him ever so slightly, or at least giving a decent account of himself, and then one big shot will land. and just completely change the tide of this fight. So for that reason, I think Diyar eventually gets the win. But with Brendson, it's like, yeah, this guy's 6'3". He has an 81-inch reach. He has twice the amount of professional experience. He's only 1 year older, and he already has 3 fights in the UFC. So more experience, physically long guy, does have a speed advantage. There's enough reasons to suggest that he is a
A live
credible enough
underdog.
opponent and a live underdog. But it's like, I ain't betting Brendson Ribeiro. Like, he's not my kind of guy. And you want to talk about Twitches? This is great. The Ming Yang Zhang fight. I watched it a couple times yesterday. And he pokes Ming Yang Zhang in the eye. And Ming Yang Zhang looks at Mike Beltran and he puts his finger up. He's trying to call a timeout. And Brendson dogs on him and he goes, right hand, left hook. And Brendson just drops like a sack of potato. He goes from looking at the ref and being like, hey, man, I'm poked in the eye. Hey, man, crack, crack. Brendson hits the deck. And that's the fourth time he's been knocked out in the first round in his career. So the durability issues for me are the reasons why I can't get behind him. There's nothing special versus Nurgozhay. Nothing special other
No.
than he can probably take a better punch than you. And at some point, he's going to put his mitts on you. He might not do it a ton, but at some point, he's going to land. And I'm not sure that Brendson stands up to that. So for that reason, I'll take Diyar. But for those lines, don't expect to see this guy in the top line because there's a lot of volatility here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna kill Ribeiro for getting finished in the first round by Ming Yang Zhang because that's what that guy does, particularly
The
at
big
this
boy.
stage. He's figured something out, and literally everyone that they put in front of him. Like, I mean, Ozzy Diaz went out and looked pretty darn good last week. He went in there against Zhang and had absolutely no chance.
That's fair.
He's just absolutely nuking everybody. Anthony Smith is next on the docket for him, April 26th. Um, Thoughts and prayers to Tony Smith there, because I don't know. He's a company man. I guess it helps when you're guaranteed commentary work and all that type of stuff. Take that fight because I can't imagine there's too many people wanting to take the Zhang fight right about now. I'm on board with you. I'm going with Nurgozhay, even though I'm like that weird Twitch thing. It's like I feel like the right opponent could maybe like time this Twitch that he kind of does. Um,
I actually prefer that it's a twitch because when I thought he was trying to reset his shoulder, I was like, this guy's got shoulder problems. And
no,
if you know a guy's got something like that, whether it be it happened to TJ Dillashaw or you see it happen in the UFC from time to time, it's like it pops out. Once you know that this is something that can happen, happens in training all the time, yeah, that's a bad place to go. To me, it looked like he kept trying to reset it, but you're right. On the Contender Series, he had a completely different one. What I will say is, I know this kid named Dylan Magist who's autistic and he fights, and he's really good. It's like being autistic is his gift. I know it's probably his curse as well. It's probably not, you wouldn't wish it on anybody, but he's very hyper focused on one singular task. He's very, very strong. I'm not saying that maybe it's a neurological issue, but I don't know that it's enough for me to be like, I could never bet on this guy that's got a twitch. I've seen guys at Twitch. That Amir Khan guy for one championship. It wasn't good. Remember he had this twitch where his like head constantly went like this all the time. It was
yeah.
like this guy's gonna get KO'd, and he never got KO'd. He could take one hell of a punch. So sometimes we think a guy's got a default or a crutch or something like that. And it's not a big deal. They've lived their entire life like that and they know how to deal with it. So, if anything, this guy got probably bullied in the Kazakh mountains when he was a kid and decided to get Kazakh tough and kick some Kazakh ass. And now that you're in North America taking on, some faulty Brazilian guy, I'm hoping, overpower this guy and put him away. But long term, I don't think Diyar is somebody that's going to break into contention and be anything special. He looks super stiff, and that's why I'm struggling to get to the price tag. But it doesn't change the pick overall.
Yeah, I mean the tape that I went through and watched, he was exploited in the wrestling a little bit. He's fighting over in Russia. Maybe he's probably fighting against better wrestlers, frankly, than Brendson. Brendson was able to take down Gadzhiev 3 times, which at the time seemed kind of okay. And then you just realize that no, Gadzhiev was like the most fraudulent OV, especially in the wrestling department that we've seen in a while. When Bruno Lopez took him down 5 times, got absolutely dominated that realm of the game. I wrote in my notes it's like not out of the realm of possibility that like Ribeiro is able to maybe get some takedowns and work from that perspective. That's not really his game though. He just wants to bang it out on the feet. So I'm going to take the guy who's 10-0, hasn't been finished, and when I watch tape, he ate shots pretty well. Like I haven't seen him rocked all that badly in a bunch of fights. Usually when he had some struggles, it was because people were taking him down. So yeah, and there's a guy is, not all of the underdogs are going to come through on this card, Cody. There's going to be some favorites, so I suppose Nurgozhay is the guy for me as well. We got Kevin Vallejos taking on Seung Woo Choi. Vallejos is a minus 588 favorite. A cool bet. Choi can be had for plus 430. I mean, do yourself a service and go back and watch Vallejos, who his first run at Contender Series, who did he get booked with?
Mean Gene.
Gian Silva. That was a fun fight. That was a competitive fight, and frankly, that was the hardest fight that Gian Silva's had in his entire UFC run here. That was we saw a lot of good stuff. Who's from Vallejos, who's still very very young, really nice body. He really showcased it in his next Contender Series fight. Just like really nice rips to the body, really solid boxing. Um, the only thing I have any sort of concerns about with him in this fight is that Choi's super long. Choi really, throws a lot of leg kicks. And from the
Mhm.
range that Choi can kind of hang out in, it's Vallejos is gonna have to like charge in, get inside, and he can't just hang out at range because he'll probably just have his legs chewed up. But at the end of the day, Choi's been, four of his last five loss or his lost four of his last five with KO losses to Steve Garcia. Mike Trezano knocked him out. He got subbed by Caceres. Um, the one win with against Jarno Aarons is where like he was able to utilize those leg kicks. That was in Singapore, weird time of day, so maybe that hurt Aarons a little bit in that fight. He just kind of hung out at range and ate those leg kicks from Choi. That's the only concern that I really have. Otherwise, I think Vallejos goes in, absolutely nukes him to the body, probably finds a knockout in the first two rounds. But yeah, so does the market. I mean, it's like minus 160 for Vallejos by KO. But that's how I see it shaking out. What about you?
Yeah, to be honest, it's the money line that I don't like. Like, I think Kevin Vallejos wins, but this is not an easy UFC debut. Keep in consideration, he's fighting a guy in his UFC debut that's had 10 fights in the UFC already, right? He's fighting a guy in Seung Woo Choi that has wins over Yusuf Zalal. He's got wins over Julian Erosa. He went the distance with Movsar Evloev, all in the
Mhm.
UFC. So this is a really experienced opponent to be drawing in your UFC debut. Not only that, you've got Kevin Vallejos is 5'7" versus Seung Woo Choi, who's 6 feet tall. Seung Woo
Yeah.
Choi also has a 6 inch reach advantage over him. So 6-1 favorite over a guy with 10 UFC fights, fought in much better level of competition, much larger than you. And Paul mentioned the leg kicks. Yeah, his leg kicks are nasty, man. He just absolutely targets you over and over, smashes that lead leg. Eventually, you got no wheel on you. They're high to the thigh, they're low to the calf. Like he just completely brutalizes you up and down and does a good job in that. Being that he's that much longer than Vallejos really needs to crash the pocket over and over, which is going to be a lot easier said than done. Not only that, you go and you look at Vallejos' record up and down. Where have you seen him grapple? You have not seen him grapple. Is this guy good off his back?
A little
It's a
bit on the Argentinian scene. I watched a couple fights, and frankly, he looked very raw in that department, to be perfectly honest.
Gene Silva shot 3 takedowns on him, got one. It was only for like 5, 6 seconds, and he popped
Hmm.
back up. But Gene wants to bang. Ultimately, Silva's
Yeah.
looking to put on a show for the fans. So Vallejos, it's you watch that little Contender Series pre-clip. He says, "I'm of 6 children. We grew up in modest conditions in Argentina. My parents didn't want me to fight. And I got into a little gym, and my dream is to make it to the UFC so I can provide a better life for them." He's not training at a huge high level in Argentina. He's not moved over stateside with all this money. He's hoping to get a UFC contract so he can help his family out. That's all well and good. If you want to stand in front of a guy who's hungry and has a dream, by all means, dangerous man. I don't think his ground game is very good. He's not trained at a high level. He's only 23 years old. I would say that that's a huge vulnerability to his game. The thing with Seung Choi is even though, he can wrestle, he took down Gavin Tucker, who's a BJJ black belt. He took down Yusuf Zalal, who's a BJJ black belt. Even though he can wrestle, he really doesn't. He is a Korean Muay Thai guy. He had a long amateur Muay Thai career, represented Korea, a bunch of tournaments, silver medalist at the IFMAs. that's who he is. Yeah, maybe he can mix in a takedown here or there, but I don't think it's enough. And so this is what this thing plays out to. Your advantage is that you're 6 feet tall, but you're gonna have to take down Vallejos, which is way more difficult because he's 5'7". When they do get in the clinch, he's not gonna be able to reach down and grab anything. He's not gonna be able to bowl him over or out muscle him. So I do think Vallejos can keep the fight standing. In terms of trading, getting past the 6 inch reach advantage, yeah, it's gonna be hard, but it's the apex, small cage. We got 15 minutes to work with, and Vallejos is just one of these South American guys that's hungry, that wants to exchange in the center of the pocket. He's gonna land at some point. And then what really did put the nail in for me that I'm not betting Soo Young Choi is that his last four fights, he's been knocked down 6 times. Josh Kulabau knocked him down twice, but did not knock him out. Michael Trezano knocked him down twice and did knock him out. Jarno Aaron's, Paul mentioned first leg gets chewed up. Second round, he steps back with a rear uppercut, left side, boom, hits Choi, and Choi just flattens on the deck. Wakes back up, survives, ends up winning the fight, but he gets knocked down. And then Steve Garcia, short shot, side of the head. He falls over. He's 32 years old now. He's had a lot of punches to the head over a Muay Thai career and then a UFC career. He's been knocked down 6 times in his last 4 fights, and he's taking on this young, hungry Argentinian kid that's very much going to go at him 100%.
And has good boxing.
You made this comment last week when we were talking about Ruffy versus Bobby Green. You said, well, Long Top took stuff that Bobby Green's not going to take. Like he had been hit with punches that if it was Bobby Green in there, it's like he just doesn't have that same level of durability. I would say the same thing. It's like in the John Silva fight, he cooks Silva to the body. Like he really hurts him to the body. The Cam Teague fight, 2 minutes and 23 seconds into the first round, he knocks him out. The whole 2 minutes and 23 seconds before the ref did this,
Beat down.
it's him landing shots that are otherwise putting Suwoo Choi away.
Hmm.
So yeah, 15 minutes is a long time, and laying praying him is very difficult for a guy that's not his style. So at some point, Kevin breaks on through. This is probably a fight don't go the distance, but I can't say for sure under 1.5, maybe under 2.5. But yeah, Choi just doesn't have the durability, sorry, to hang out there with Kevin Vallejos for the entirety of the fight. So at some point, Kevin breaks on through. The money line for a car crash fight versus we talked about the length and the size and the experience. All of that makes it don't really want to jump in on this stuff. Putting Vallejos on the top line, considering his style, can't do that. Uh, yeah, he's the pick. We'll work him on somehow, but there's still a little bit of reservation.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about this fight. I think early in the week here with this number the way it is, I don't know. I feel like once people see the weigh-ins and they see how much bigger Choi is, how much taller Choi is, I think you may get a better price on Vallejos as like later on in the week after weigh-ins, after all that's like Saturday. Maybe I'm dead wrong on that. I don't plan on touching the money line either. I'm going to be probably looking for the best Vallejos KO number I can get, and that's how I'm going to get exposure to this fight. Because I think going 15 minutes and going the most tit for tat with John Silva that we've seen since John Silva entered the UFC, that means something. Like that's a guy who's on the absolute rise and just knocking out contender or people, not contenders, but knocking out people left and right. That watching that fight back, we're like, one, this is super violent. Two, John hasn't been hit nearly this much in quite some time. And three, this kid's only 23 years old. Like I
He's
think this
21
boxing
when they fought then. He's 23 now. So it's
this
like,
kid's got
yeah,
a lot of
getting better.
talent.
Getting better.
Obviously he's got holes, and that's why laying a minus 600, minus 588 at cool bet is a little bit, yeah, you're buying all the upside and not really factoring in any of the risk. All right, we got Waldo taking on Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann moving up to heavyweight. He's 6'5", so it's like I imagine I know he used to fight at middleweight, but that was a long time ago. 6'5". It'll be interesting to see what Ryan Spann looks like when he gets on the scales. Minus 167 for Waldo, plus 140 for Spann. Who you got?
Yeah, well, you're gonna want to wait to see weigh-ins. I assume Spann's gonna come in like 230, 235. But yeah, I mean, I just what do you expect from Ryan Spann at heavyweight? I mean, his biggest issue has always been his cardio. I'm not gonna say his heart. I'm gonna say
Should
it's his
help.
cardio. He tires out and then he can't go no more. Um, but there's two trains of thought here. At heavyweight, oh, he doesn't have to cut all that weight anymore. Dude's 6'5". Dude's a huge guy. 79-inch reach. He's got the frame of a heavyweight. Now that he's actually fighting at heavyweight, cardio will be way better. No weight cut. The other
He's
train
also
of
probably
thought
not
is,
running on a treadmill, which would give him better cardio.
yeah, the other train of thought is who knows what his cardio is like, but Waldo Cortes-Acosta is 6'4", 260 pounds, right? So
Yeah,
do you think muscling this guy around is going to be easier than muscling around a 205 or like
no.
probably not. That's probably going to be more exerting to him. So this is a spot that you hammer this live betting line. I think Ryan Spann wins the first round. I honestly do. One thing about Ryan Spann is he's one of the great one-round fighters in the game. You know, like he's capable of hanging with a lot of guys. Very nice striking. Nasty guillotine choke on him if he grabs a hold of it. When he loses, a lot of the time it's in the first round. When he wins, a lot of the time it's in the first round. But he's a one-round guy. He has a stretch here. 6 straight UFC fights. Johnny Walker, Misha Cherkinov, Anthony Smith, Ion Kudalaba, Dominic Reyes, Nikita Krylov. 6 straight UFC fights end in the first round. That's unheard of. But that's who he is. Now you can blame weight cuts and you can blame durability issues. You can blame this and that. But yeah, once he gets out of that first round, he's not quite the same guy. And you can look at a bunch of these fights that it's like, oh man, he could have won that fight. His fight with Anthony Smith, the rematch, right? The first one he got subbed in the first round. The second fight, he breaks Smith's nose in the second round. He's winning the second round, or he wins the second round. It's 1-1 going into the third. He gasses out and he loses. He fought Sam Alvey back in the day, right? Wins the first round, halfway through the second, absolutely gasses out. Wins a split over Sam Alvey on the basis of he just gasses and can't hang later in the round two or into round three. His fight with Bogdan Guskov just recently, he wins the first round, gasses out in the second round and gets folded over by Guskov. And then he takes a fight with Alvin St. Preux. He catches that first round guillotine choke. The first round. Yes, and he's finished a lot of guys in the first round. If you can get him out of that, that's where it's going to be problematic for him. When I look at him and as opposed to Waldo Acosta, is a pro boxer and he fights like a pro boxer. He's a little flat-footed. He mostly wants to throw his jab and his right hand. He's not big on leg kicks. He's not big on offensively shooting takedowns unless you're taking on someone like Robelis Spang. For the
Hmm.
most part, he's just using his two primary weapons, his left hand and his right hand. Span's got good leg kicks. Span's got better movement. He's a better athlete. He's faster than him. That right hand over the top, does some serious damage. His ability to shoot in, he's a better wrestler than Acosta. And I think he will take down Acosta. It's that if he does not snatch up a submission in that first round, that second round, those takedowns are going to be a lot harder to come by. And once you start to fatigue, his movement's not that good, and his kicks are not that good, and that right hand is not that good, and his grappling is not all that good. All of his stats are largely diminished after the first round. So Costa's just got to get it to that. Now the worry here with Costa is that he hasn't fought in over a year, and he pulled out of a fight with Chris Barnett due to a hand injury, right? Your hand would have to be amputated for you to pull out of a fight with Chris Barnett. So
Even
you
if it
know he's
was,
banged
even if
up.
it was over on we bet that one guy who only had one arm over in we
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah,
over on the
100%.
Patreon. I
Jake
forget. We do
Peacock.
so many different cards that
Yeah, Jake Peacock.
it gets yeah, Jake Peacock, your boy.
Yeah, yeah, he's got same thing. It's like you could have gone in there with one arm tied behind your back and still won that fight. So you know he was banged up. Then you check him on social media and he's like got this whole arm and is like casted up and he's in a hospital bed and he does not look good. I'm sure it got infected as well. He is in Arizona, but he doesn't train at the MMA lab like full time. He's training at a just a smaller gym in Arizona under Javier Garcia. There's not a whole lot of big guys there. He mostly just uses his boxing. I don't really think he's all that good. And you look at his run, it's like, okay, well, what's he got that we like? Well, his last fight against Robelis Spang, you took him down. Well, that's Robelis. This guy's not a wrestler. He's not a good wrestler. Is Robelis. Okay. Then Andrei Arlovsky. Andrei Arlovsky, I was struck him 58 to 49. Like he did what everybody does against Arlovsky. He just stared at him. Oh, it's Andre. I wonder if he'll sign on my shirt after the fight. Man, what a cool guy, dude. This guy's a cool guy.
I
And
know
not trying to punch him. They
as
they
an
just love him
Arlovsky
so
better,
much.
I was very tilted there because I think he was like a pretty decent sized dog. And I was clearly on Andre.
He was a decent sized dog, and there's an
A
argument that
big
Andre
dog.
outworked him. He's not doing anything. The Brzezinski fight, he
He's
catches a
minus
little.
750 against Andre.
Yeah, I know. It's wild, eh? And then his fight versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima, who recently just popped for steroids, crazy enough. But he just gives up 3 easy takedowns and he's got no ability to get back up. So he's got no depth in his ground game. His cardio's mid. His boxing's mid. I keep saying pro boxer. He's got a losing record as a pro. Fuck it, guys. Give him that. But he's mostly just a jab right hand guy. And he taunts a lot. and he plays to the crowd a lot. There's no crowd here. And the judges find it irritating that it's like it's a close round and he's got his hands up, or he's doing a little Muhammad Ali shuffle, or he's trying to bait his opponent. He's trying to, peacock him a little bit. I think someone eventually is going to screw him on the scorecards. But Spann's not usually the kind of guy that makes it to the scorecards.
Yeah.
So at some point, Spann just gasses himself out. What I will offer you here, though, is betting Waldo pre-fight. I think he's losing the first round. I think you bet him after he loses that first round at a much better number. Second round's going to be closer. You're going to see Spann start to fatigue. Waldo takes over. Third round, Waldo wins. Maybe he finishes him late, or maybe he just wins the round and wins a 29-28. But bet this thing. Pre-fight flop, I will take Waldo, but Spann's a better fighter. Just moving up a weight class. This thing probably going into the later rounds. It's not his style of fight. I'm off of him for here for right now.
Yeah, taking on a boxer whose chin is at least the one thing that's held up, at least in in MMA for him, has been Waldo's durability. His chin hasn't been rocked all that often when he's been in fights. I wanted to find reasons to bet Waldo, and I just I just thought that the line's probably pretty accurate, to be perfectly honest. It is a fight though, because like any Spann fight, if Spann doesn't get you out of there early, it is game on. And I'm not buying that his cardio is going to be better after round one. I feel like at this stage in your career, when you move up to heavyweight and you have a long history of gassing out, slowing down after round one, it's because you don't want to put in that extra grind, that extra work to make that cut. I'll be shocked if like Spann all of a sudden has like Marab cardio. Not that he would need Marab cardio. I'm being facetious, but I'd be very, very surprised if that's the case. I guess over 1.5. My see, I don't even really love that because it's a Spann fight. When Spann gets the job done, it happens underneath, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is that the over 1.5, the under 1.5 is plus 140, which is identical to Spann's money line. I think the books kind of got it right. I'll go with Waldo, but a lot of the points that you said make a lot of sense to me. Not going to get to a lot of this card. I'm not getting too invested in, to be perfectly honest, this week. I think it's tough sledding out there. We got Soo Young Yoo taking on AJ Cunningham. Minus 667 for you, plus 500 for AJ. Who you got here, bud?
Okay, so yeah, this is probably the PRP pick, but I'm gonna take AJ Cunningham. I know it doesn't
Okay.
really make a whole lot of sense, but Sung Young Yoo is not good. This guy is not a good fighter. He's got a nasty little back take, but overall his striking is not good. I mean, he's short for the division. He throws these rinky-dink little inside leg kicks, and then he tries to line you up with a little right hand. To me, there's no power in his striking. His first fight on road to the UFC against Shohei Nose, he he beats him by unanimous decision. He landed 6 significant strikes and 4 takedowns. He can take down Nose. He can get to the back. He can control him, but he's not big on ground and pound. The entire time the fight's standing, it's feint to punch, single leg takedown, feint to punch, single leg takedown, feint to punch, single leg takedown. I don't like it. His second fight, he takes on this Dirmisi Zamumpasi, right? And it's a split decision. Visibly, he does do damage in that fight. Zawapassi's bleeding from the face, a lot of it, but it's like, he hits him a couple times and there is some blood, but he's getting dog walked the entire time. He gets 8 takedowns on 14 attempts, I want to say.
Mhm.
8 takedowns on 14 attempts and gets 2 minutes and 44 seconds of control time. So now he's met with a guy that he can't just take his back, but when he takes him down, he's constantly getting popped back up and he's getting outlanded. Third round, he's backpedaling. He loses the third. It's a close fight. He wins a split decision. You're squeaking by guys by split decision at the road to UFC level 2 fights ago. I'm not betting you as a minus 600 favorite. Are you kidding me? But we'll go on from that. Makes his UFC debut. It's the road to the UFC finale. He gets that Berengang Jinyisi. Um, Again, he's able to get the takedowns, control his opponent.
Mhm.
Not much ground and pound, not much in the way of submission attempts. It's just he can get to your back and he can control you. He does look like he's athletic. It looks like he's a physically strong guy. But what I will say is that he's now 29 years old. He's not some young Korean prospect who's 23, 24 and going to jump onto the scene. He's already a lot more further in his game. Now, I did make the mistake last week where I had Ray Tsuruya to beat Josh Van. And what happens there is you saw the limitations to a one-dimensional grappler. That if you cannot get that grappling going, it's going to be a problem. So all of this in consideration, he's gone 3 decisions, relatively close on all of them. His fight
Mhm.
with No Say, he outstruck him 6-5, but he had a couple takedowns. Against Diyar, he got outstruck 49-47, but he had some takedowns. That's what he's solely relying on. Okay, that's who he is. At minus 650, I would not bet him over anybody. So now we look at AJ Cunningham. So what do we like about AJ Cunningham? It's like, not much, man, not much. Okay, well, let's dig. Let's start scratching the bottom of the floor and come up with some shit right now.
Trains
Okay,
with Bryce. So
Bryce,
it's
it's
like
Bryce's
he
cousin.
should be, if he's training with him every single day, like it seems like on his social media, is you gonna bring anything to the table in the grappling department that he doesn't see from Bryce? Probably not.
That's thing number one. It's like, okay, well, I mean, the entire time that he's training with Bryce, it's like you've got a power wrestler and a power grappler, just like Paul says. You've got a guy that's much better than No Say, and this has been the large amount of your training sessions is grappling. In fact, AJ Cunningham is a BJJ black belt under Bryce Mitchell. So it would make sense that this is the type of style. We've seen AJ Cunningham take a beating on the Contender Series. And then they brought him into the UFC and he took a beating. The
Yeah,
UFC is doing him a favor.
that was unfair giving him Ludovic Klein though. Like that was just like what are we doing here? Like we
And what
said
are we
that it's like
doing
this fight
here?
shouldn't even be booked. Like Ludovic Klein was coming off of a decision win over Ignacio Bahamondes, and then
Mm.
he got AJ Cunningham next time out. Like just
Yeah,
like pretty unfair.
and
Like
so
that made
this
zero sense.
And then so this is where we're going with this, right? It's like AJ Cunningham, right off the get-go, they gave him 2 strikers and he got beat up by strikers. Now the UFC matchmaking teams are saying, listen, thanks for taking those matchups. We're going to give you a guy that cannot strike. He's not going to knock you out. He's not going to deliver a concussive blow. He is 100% a grappler. So you can now go out and give the best of your skills, which is also grappling. AJ Cunningham is a grappler. You look at his record, all of his losses, he lost to Solo Hadley at 145. He lost to Javier Garcia at 145. He lost to Stephen Nguyen on the Contender Series at 145. He took that UFC debut against Ludovic Klein on short notice at 155. As
Hmm.
Paul mentioned, the dude had just beat Ignacio Bahamondes, the biggest 55er in the division since Jalen Turner retired. So, do you know what this fight's at? It's at 135 pounds,
Oh,
right?
is it a bantamweight?
Yes, Sung Yoo Young has been fighting
It
completely
is.
exclusively 135-pound fighters on road to UFC, and he can take them down. AJ Cunningham showed nothing but heart in that fight with Ludovic Klein. He's got heart for days. He's got a very crazy background where his dad used to shoot him up with steroids when he was 8 years old. He
Fed
used
him
to
dog food.
fed him dog food and made him sleep in a kennel. They
Hmm.
eventually got taken out of the household and put into foster care because he knew nothing else but fighting. He beat up the other kids in foster care, so they put him in juvenile detention center. Juvenile detention center in Arkansas threw him in with kids that were 17 years old, despite the fact that he was only 9, so he regularly got beat by the older kids. You've never heard a more wild and traumatic and sad story than the story of AJ Cunningham. But through that, he's been built to be a man. He can take the beating if it's presented to him. He's said many times before, like, this is the only thing I'm good at, and I'm going to ride this thing as long as I possibly can. Against better, more athletic, savvy strikers, they're beating him to the punch. They're rocking his head side to side. They're causing some serious damage. Against a grappler, it would be better suited for him. Moving down to 135 would be much better suited. He's going to be big, strong, physical. You can grapple with Bryce Mitchell on the day to day. This will feel a lot easier. Last but not least, up until this point, he's largely just been training with Bryce Mitchell in a garage, or really not training at all. But he spent the last year at Factory X Muay Thai over in Colorado. He's actually the kids BJJ coach at Factory X in Colorado. He's training full time. He's getting quality work. He's working every skill set he's got. He's gonna have a size advantage. I think he's gonna be Arkansas strong, and I think he's gonna just be able to at least get taken down and get back up right away, throw up submission attempts, keep this fight standing. And whereas you're not really a good striker, you're probably a better striker than him. All it really leads to is that it's a close fight, and a close fight does one of two things for me. One, I'm going to be on the value side of it because why would you pay a minus 600 favorite in Soo Young Yoo? To put things in perspective, he's a minus 600 underdog, plus 600 underdog against Ludovic Klein, and he's a plus 500 underdog here.
Yeah.
Ludovic Klein is a top ranked lightweight. Why
Yeah.
is the line not changed? So that
Because the assumption is that AJ Cunningham is just absolutely horrible. And that may be right.
it
That may
could
be
be.
right.
It
But
could be.
they're giving us the price to play around with this. I wasn't on
Absolutely
him.
play
I
around
was
with it.
adamantly opposed to playing him against Ludovic Klein because I saw the writing on the wall watching the table. I was like, this is an absolute murder scene. I was watching this one and I'm like, I don't really know if it's a murder scene. I'll tell you that much. And it comes down to kind of the grappling for Soo Young Yoo, which yeah, I guess he could get it going, but like I kind of just I went and looked at like AJ Cunningham's social media posts. It's just like he's just with Bryce, it seems like all the
In
time.
Vegas, yeah, and he's been in Vegas for a couple weeks leading up to this one. So, yeah, listen, there's worse guys that you could train with. I had a joke earlier about how like Bryce Mitchell would disown him for losing to an Asian guy, but I'm just not even gonna bother going
But
there.
you just said
It's
it,
low
so
hanging
it's too
fruit.
late now.
It was low
It's
hanging fruit, so I just decided I wouldn't go there.
we did.
But it was low hanging fruit, and I ain't going there, Paul. What I will say for AJ though is yeah, just go out there, do the best that you can. And I think for this value, oh yeah, there's my last point. Is that okay? If you look at you, the no save fight was actually close, and it's a split decision versus Darmisi Zawupasi, just 2 fights back. So if I
Mhm.
could just have this as a close fight, if it could just be a split decision type fight, value side to side, throw that all out the window. If I can just have this as a close decision, you'd have to be a heartless some bitch to be sitting ringside and not give it to AJ Cunningham if this thing's close. Who deserves it more than this guy? Come on, throw him a bone for once in his life. If I'm a good guy, I'm edging close rounds for him. So wait until you see weigh-ins; it'll be telling because he's dropping down 2 weight classes. But outside of that, PRP pick AJ Cunningham.
When you say throw a bone, I couldn't help myself, but
Oh, Paul, you're gonna go there? That's low,
I thought about
Paul.
his dad.
That's low hanging fruit, Paul.
Well, we can't cut it out now. It's too late. Um, Moving
On
on
to the
down, we
next one
got
then.
Josias Musasa taking on Carlos Vera. Cool, but it's got the worst number on market for this one, or at least if you like the Musasa side, it's the worst number. Minus 1,000 for Musasa. Vera could be had for plus 650. I go and I watch the tape. I watch the tape on both of these guys. And don't get me wrong, I think Musasa has a lot of potential, a lot of good to come from that. And that win against Tanzalovi, like we broke down Tanzalovi's most recent fight, I believe on like Tough Enough or one of the regional cards that we do over there on the Patreon. Links in the description. If you want more from us, we're going to be breaking down uh two Cage Warriors cards this week. Plus, we got another Tough Enough, and we've got Cage Fury or something like that code, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I've been looking at the Cage Warriors cards. The Friday Cage Warriors cards falling apart, but that's a different story. Yeah, there's Discord, all that type of good stuff. So doing a lot of extra work over there. If you want more from us, that's great. Link is in the description for that. If you just want, you're just like Paul, stop the damn promo, just get on with this pick. I'm gonna do that right now. But we'd love to have you over there, whether you come or not. Nice little regional win. By regional standards, that win on Contender Series, very, very solid. He got taken down a little bit early on in that fight. And at this price, you gotta have to start kind of considering, is there a world where Carlos Vera is able to kind of exploit him there? Carlos Vera, on the other hand, he's the striking coach at Ryan Hall's 50-50 gym, from what I gather. The one thing that I would say, be careful, laying minus 1,000, minus 900 at a lot of other places right now on Musasa. Is like that Carlos Vera fight against Rinya Nakamura right out of the gate. Vera just goes, jumps in, and starts looking for leg locks.
Hmm.
Now, if you're Musasa, or you're Musasa's team, I mean, it's plainly obvious to an idiot like me. Um, I'm learning how to defend against that early. But my concern is like he kind of gets a hold of that leg. He kind of gets close to starting to be able to, to lock something like that in. And a guy like Musasa without all that much experience, one really good win on Contender Series against a credible opponent, like a very, very, very solid opponent. My concern is like, could Carlos Vera come out here, just kind of jump in there, grab leg kicks, or sorry, grab a leg and go home with like a knee bar or something like that. That's really my only concern here because the longer these guys stay standing, Musasa um, is way more athletic, throws with volume. Obviously, it seemed like he had a very, very solid chin. The only spot that I think may be the right person, and it was like, yeah, it was pretty high paced fight. Cardio fell off a little bit in the third round in there, but it was like I don't know if Vera brings all that much to the table. My only concern would be that leg lock. And is it one of those fights where it's just like, oh, it's so obviously this guy was inexperienced. How did he get caught in this type of web? It's like this is kind of like the exact like perfect recipe for like a crazy upset. Unfortunately, the book's probably seeing the same thing because I see the money line is like plus 600 and then Vera by sub is like plus 700. So it's like they're basically telling you that the only chance Vera wins this fight is by submission. If somebody, yeah, if there's more generous numbers later in the week on the Vera sub, I'd take like a plus 1,000. Shot in the dark, 1 in 10 type of shot. But I think Musasa wins. But of course, he should win at minus 900. Really, I think it's a shot in the dark. I think it's a leg lock, kind of overwhelms him. Too big for the moment type of thing. That's really the only way I see Musasa losing here. What's your take?
Yeah, because the money line's so blown up, I'm looking at the over 1.5 at minus 165 is a much
Okay,
better angle. Musasa's got like all of his wins
I like
prior to the
that.
contender series are first round knockouts. They call him the KO Wizard. They got a better name for it, but it translates to the KO Wizard. And yeah, a friend of mine got offered a fight with him 2 years ago over in Africa, and originally said yeah. Did some tape research and was like, no way. Like the guy does hit very hard. He's very athletic, powerful guy. Wouldn't want to go over there and get your ass beat by him. But what I will say is, since he came over to the contender series, that's the first time he fought outside of Africa, so it is very much a jump up in competition. And Tanzalovi, he was undefeated at the time, Georgian guy, strong, and he just won the Fury Championship title in his very first fight after this one. So he's got good grappling. He really tries to implement that grappling on Musasa. Musasa does an excellent job in that he's got very good hips. He might not know the most about takedown defense or anything like that, but again, very athletic guy. He's got excellent balance and he's hard to knock over. When he does knock over, he's very fast, explosive,
Correction.
pops right back up. Go ahead.
He didn't win the belt. You know why?
Oh yeah, miss weight.
Miss weight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right about that. Torres, his opponent in that fight, though, wrestled for Team Mexico at the Olympics. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there are levels to this. And for Musasa to be a very young fighter from Congo, he's got all the parts. It's that he
Yeah.
needs to continue to learn and grow and get better. Quick knockouts on the regional scene are not going to necessarily materialize as you go up in ranks, right? Carlos Vera has never been knocked out. Carlos Vera hasn't been finished since like 2015. Paul's worried about the leg locks. If that was to happen, it probably would happen early. I'd be a little bit worried as well. But again, I mean, he's not, he's a black belt, but he doesn't sub all that many guys. He's not sub somebody with a leg locks, I think in 7 or 8 years.
No, he's got guillotines, but like Musasa shouldn't be shooting any sort of takedowns here. So,
Yeah. What I
um,
like with Vera is just like Ryan Hall, because they're 50-50 guys, is they're guard pullers, right? So like he'll shoot a takedown, grab a leg, and try to fall back on the leg. He'll try to push you up against the cage and keep that space. He's willing to, if he gets hit and he gets hurt, he's not just going to default to swing a couple punches with you. He's going to fall to his butt and regard, right? So he's kind of risk adverse unless he gets the submission. Musasa, UFC debut, wants to go out there, wants to give a good, account of himself. I think he's going to take his time, wait for this guy, see those takedowns, see those leg lock attempts, and then really start to turn up the pace later on. This fight outright just could go to decision, but beyond that, I think it's going to hit that over 1.5.
I like
Um,
that.
if I'm looking at, like, if I want to get real greedy with it, a Musasa by decision, keep in
Oh,
mind, he just won a decision in his last fight. So this is not crazy. He's fighting another grappler that's going to look to slow him
plus
down.
200.
That's not enough. Definitely not enough. The way this kid hits and throws flying knees and stuff like that, forget that. I would just take this over 1.5. Of course, for PRP purposes, Musasa, sorry, is gonna end up on it. Uh, but at minus 900, minus 1,000, like once you start getting to that territory, what good is it giving you? And yes, he's taking on a 38-year-old credited BJJ black belt
Yeah,
who's coming off the Ultimate Fighter as well and maybe has more experience than him. Like there's enough reasons to say, hey, don't bet this thing at 10 to 1. But 1.5, yeah, I think that's the angle that makes the most sense, and it will be on my non-violence parlay or not parlay, but prop picks.
makes sense. I mean, yeah, at 9 to 1, 10 to 1, it's 1 in 10, right? So it's like 10% of the time. You're like, if these guys fought 10 times, does something very horrible, like very, does this young kid make a big mistake, do something dumb, or does the fight just play out a lot more competitive? I think within that type of parameter, I think I see like, we both see massive athletic advantages for Musasa here. I get why he's the favorite, but. Um, yeah, experience can kind of come through in these spots too, and they're not really giving you the right price to get too excited about playing anything with this money line. We got Stephanie Luciano taking on Sam Page Hughes. Minus 227 for Luciano, plus 190 for Hughes. Who you got here?
Yeah, I got Stephanie Luciano. There's no real good angle here. It's just when she fought in the contender series against Talita Alencar. Alencar is BJJ champion, so the idea there was Luciano's young and better striker, but she needs to keep this fight standing. And she would get taken down, and this girl's got good submission defense. She's wily. She's got solid cardio, puts a solid pace on you. Whenever she got up, she just absolutely, came at Alencar. Ended up losing the first 2 rounds, scored a 10-8 in the third, got a draw. The UFC signs her off a draw and does not sign Talita Alencar initially. And then they bring in Alencar and they're like, let's just run this thing back in the UFC. And you saw just from fight to fight, takedown defense look way better. Again, she's young. She's got solid output. I think her striking is her primary path to success, and just using that volume, outworking her opponent. Against Sam Hughes, Sam Hughes is a wily veteran that she will mix in takedowns. She will stand in trade in certain instances, but I just feel like someone that's really going to put a pace on her is going to start to ever so slightly just pull away on the numbers. You've seen this happen to Sam Hughes a couple times. I guess most notably her fight with Yasmin Yergui. Why not take down Yergui? Why would you want to just stand with her? And as she does, she's landing, but she's getting it worked over the course of it. Her fight with Piera Rodriguez, she got taken down 5 times. And then her last fight with Victoria Dudakova, she's getting taken down. She's working back up. She puts up high volume in that spot. She's going to be able to match Stephanie Luciano in some ways, volume wise. But over the course of the 15 minutes, I just feel like Luciano's youth, athleticism, speed, probably going to outland her, probably going to land the more eye catching blows. I got Luciano. Don't have a ton of money on it. Don't have a ton of faith in it. But I just feel like she's the better prospect. She's been impressing me her last couple fights. And I think that she just continues that trend and gets the win here.
Yeah, my struggle with backing Sandpage in this spot is that I think there's kind of like she was able to pull it off against Elise Reed. So, I
Yeah,
mean, Elise Reed had
Elise.
some of the worst wrestling in the division. I think there's like a mindset. Everyone seems to think that that she's a very good offensive wrestler, and it's
Mm,
not really the case. She's a
no.
fine grappler when it gets to the mat. She's able to sometimes get a transition going to get to top control, but offensively, actually getting that takedown has not really been her strong suit. What she does is stand in the pocket, stand inside, and just and unload more volume. It's a pressure boxer type of style. If Sam isn't able to track her down, which I think she's going to be giving up a lot of speed here, I'm with you. I think that Luciano is the side here. Frankly, we're gonna talk, but I can see all three female underdogs coming through here. But I will side with Luciano in this fight. Sam Page has a knack for pulling off for pulling off the upset, but um, I mean, even against Yasmin Yerkui, she lost a unanimous decision. It was 94-83 in significant strikes. I'm not gonna fault anybody for taking Sam
Split
Hughes,
decision
but
props. Here I come.
yeah. I think I was looking at some of them earlier today. They were like plus 350, and I was like, hey,
That's it.
yeah, they're not always that, especially with these, especially because you have a fight here in Luciano versus Hughes, right? That it's the over 2.5 is minus 556. So
Yeah,
like
I know.
that factors
Yeah.
in that like, okay, this fight's probably going to decision. Sam Hughes is always in competitive fights, even as a dog. It's a somewhat closely lined fight as well. So all those things kind of factor in that it's like they're not going to be too generous with that type of stuff.
I
So
always I always wanted
yeah,
to see props where they'd be like, "Oh, you're taking Carlos Vera," and you could say, "I want to take him by guillotine choke," and they'd say, "Well, he's got three guillotine
there's
chokes,
some
but this is
places
the
have
fight."
that.
And then, "Oh, I want to take him by leg lock." It'd be hard to say knee bar or heel hook or straight ankle lock, like just leg lock in general would probably be the best way to go about that.
Some books do that.
Yeah, but again, it's like I want a big juicy price tag on it. I don't
Yeah.
want, oh well, his path to victory is submission and his guillotine, he's got more of those than anything else. So plus 350 or something of that nature. It's like, no, man, give me a 10 to 1, a 12 to 1, and 15 to 1 because it's so specific. The thing with
Yeah.
a split decision is that you're essentially betting on that there's one bad judge, or at least that the three judges are not going to be, which is a good bet when you think about it.
Or that the
Yeah,
fight's
that's a
just so
good bet when you
close. Like
think about
sometimes
it.
there's
There's always a
fight.
bad judge.
Sometimes there's fights that it's just like that a split decision 100% just makes sense. Um,
I disagree.
For instance, like the first time Dolidze and Marvin fought, it didn't end up and that's the risk you play. It's like that was the perfect type of fight to play out as a split decision, but you still got screwed on it. Because like if you look at like MMA decisions, it's like everybody was quite literally split. There was like 29-28s for both sides, pretty much 50-50. The
Yeah,
problem is you have three judges cage side, and they're the only ones that actually matter.
yeah. The issue that I take with it is that and you hear people say it all the time, where they're like, I can't believe it was 29-28 across the bar. I can't believe it wasn't a split decision. It's like, well, what did you score the fight? I scored it 29-28 for fighter A. Okay. That's what you saw. You saw it 29-28. And if there's three of you, that's what the three of you saw. It's a unanimous decision, but they're baffled how it's not a split. So what? Are you saying if you were the three judges, that two of you would have been like fighter A won, and inexplicably the third one would be like fighter B because it was close? So like it's so hard to say it should have been a split. It should have been a split.
I
When
don't
you
think
see
it could have been
the
a
only
split.
time I agree, oh, it should have been a split is if it's a flat robbery where it's a unanimous decision. You know when your guy gets robbed and they get robbed unanimous?
Hmm.
Like Rosansky in Poland. Like that should have been a split. Like if you're gonna screw me, I get it. I get it. It's MMA. How did all three of them screw me? Something where it's like it's a split. It's like, yeah, okay, I get it. It was a close fight. I figured it would be a split. It was very close. You could see people having different takes on it, but yeah, it irks me when someone's like, I think this guy won. I think this guy won. And then they announce it's unanimous. It's like, well, I didn't think it'd be unanimous. But you thought he won. And if you and your two buddies are all watching this together and you all have that same opinion, then it's a unanimous. But in their idea, unanimous means it's a beaten. If you say I beat this guy by unanimous decision, it means you kicked his ass. Split means, oh, it was a close fight. Whereas we see it all the time. There's guys that wins unanimous decisions whose face are butchered and arms broken, and well, he won two of the three rounds, but it's
Hmm.
not the entirety of it. So it's the perception of, oh man, look at his face. I can't believe that was a unanimous decision. It's like I don't like
That's not
that
how
line of
fights are
thinking.
scored.
Yeah, I just don't like that. Exactly. I don't like the line of thinking. But yeah, well, we got three more fights. We'll pump them out here.
Yeah, we got Andre Lima. He's taking on Daniel Barres. Andre Lima's a minus 370 favorite. Barres can be had for plus 290. Lima doesn't really throw enough volume, but the problem with Barres on the other side is that I see a flyweight who seems to have like cardio issues, particularly the later fights go. Lima, the one credit I will give him is that like defensively, defensively, striking defense, 100% on point. I struggled to see Daniel Barres doing enough here to get the to get the nod. I don't know if Barres' wrestling is good enough to do what like our boy Igor before he bit him. Our
Wow.
boy Igor, who's fighting actually in Octagon. We're gonna be breaking that down on the Patreon in like a month. Igor the biter, the bite of the night winner or loser, I guess, is returning to MMA. So kind of looking forward to that.
He
Because
actually
that
already
guy was
fought once for
damn talented.
yeah.
And like Lima's done well since that fight. And Igor was coming on. I don't know what the hell was going through his mind at that moment, but like watching that fight, maybe Barres can find a little bit of success shooting takedowns, that type of thing. I just don't know if he's got the cardio to actually do that over the course of 3 rounds and win a fight that way. So it's probably going to be boring. It's probably a fight where you want to be betting overs, I guess. But I think Lima wins and wins a unanimous decision. What will you?
Yeah, Lima's a bit of a puzzler to me, but I do have him to win this fight. With Barres a little bit older, he's 35, 36 years old. When he first debuted on the Contender Series, which he lost, but oh my God, this guy's just throwing caution to the wind. Like, if you want to impress Dana White by fighting hyper aggressive, he does exactly that. But as Paul mentioned, he gasses. He can't sustain that kind of pace. Since they've brought him back into the UFC, he gets arm triangle choked in his debut, and then his last fight against Victor Altamirano, just largely able to land the bigger punches, I suppose. I would say with Lima, Lima was originally a Brazilian kickboxing champion, right? So he's a good kickboxer, fundamentally sound. His fight with Igor Severino, who I do actually rate, well, until he bites people, he's a talented guy. He's doing good. The tide's turning against him. Severino's starting to dog him a little bit, but he's got like this sweet, sweet scent. It's like a musk that comes off him that if you get within reach, it's like you just can't help yourself. That you have to bite him. And he gets a DQ win there. I would take a DQ win here as well. Probably unlikely. Barres is not a grappler, though. I mean, he's a Spanish kickboxer himself. He's a strong guy, a physical guy. He wants to be more physical, outwork you, land hooks. Doesn't have a whole lot of variety with his straight punches, but a physical guy that winds up on a lot of his shots. I feel like Lima could engage him in a striking battle, is cleaner, he's bigger, he hits a little harder. Is that he might get outworked ever so slightly if that's the only path he takes. But you saw in his last fight versus Dos Santos, he takes him down. It's like,
Hmm.
dude, I watched you fight Manel Kape. That it was competitive. I ain't gonna do that with you. I'm just gonna take you down. And then that was the first time it dawned on me. It was like, he's primarily a striker. He can grapple. I wouldn't say just as good, but it's in his back pocket to utilize. And this would be one of those spots with Barres where it's like strike with him sometimes and then lean on him, cause him to carry your weight, and he'll tire out even faster than he normally does. Lima should be able to get the win. So I do have him winning. I got overs, like you mentioned. Things probably going to go to decision. That being said, yeah, the kickboxer's probably not going to submit him. And just Barra's giving up that head and arm choke. It's like he did look out of his depth a little bit. He's a flyweight, like you mentioned. He's small for the weight class. He's older. Maybe I don't love the overs as much as I thought I did. But in either scenario, I feel like Lima does get the win. So it's a money line that's blown up a little bit, but I feel like he does beat Barres and secure, keep adding to his little win streak he's got going.
All right. It's the people's main event, Cody.
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm glad you said that because I've been saying this to myself internally since it got announced. I was like, this is the best fight on the card, like for sure.
The people's champ is back. Priscilla Cab Cachoeira. Cab stands for catch a beating. My girl, who I frankly I bet her pretty. I didn't bet her against Shevchenko. There's some like falsehoods out there in the world that like I bet her every single fight. I got on her when the market couldn't have been lower on her. She went on a nice little run, and it's like now you kind of know. It's like anytime she takes on a grappler, you got to know what you're getting yourself into. I thought I was all the way out on it, Cody. And then they brought me back in. I haven't bet it yet, but my God, how am I gonna not? Um, Josiana Nunez minus 182 favorite. Cachoeira plus 150. Josiana Nunez, they're fighting a bantamweight. Not that I really think that's too big of a deal. Josiana Nunez, it's interesting. Josiana Nunez is 5'2" with a 67-inch reach. And Cachoeira is like 5'7", so 5 inches taller, but giving up 2 inches of reach. She's a 65-inch reach, so wild kind of thing. The biggest thing about this fight, though, is, I mean, Josiane Nunez has literally never shot a takedown in her UFC run here. She took on Zara Farn, and that entire fight where she's given up she's taken on
Yeah.
a French kickboxer who was way taller, had way longer, had all these advantages. She never even like crossed her mind to shoot a takedown. Um, it worries me a little bit that like the entire world, it seems, maybe it's just my world. People just keep tagging me. It's like Cachoeira fight week. We're all doing it. Feels like everybody's doing it. But I'm a loyal guy at the very least at the end of the day, Cody. I can't not. There's no way I get to Saturday night and don't have a Priscilla Cachoeira ticket in my pocket. So it's dog or pass for me. What about you?
I like that level of commitment, but yeah, I got to go the other way and go Josias Nunes. Listen, Josias Nunes, 5'2". She used to fight at 145. Like she was fighting featherweights until they abolished the division, whereas Cachoeira has been fighting at 125 pounds. So Josias Nunes, where she's like always undersized, like this is a spot where it's really not that bad. And her biggest thing is people that offensively shoot takedowns on her. Like unless you've got over 100 significant strikes volume or the ability to shoot takedowns and take her down, she just clubs you with that left hand over and over and over. And she's not doing anything other than spamming overhand lefts, and opponents cannot get out of the way of it. It's amazing to see, Paul. Chelsea Chandler, okay, Chelsea Chandler took her down twice, but if you're not taking her down, you're going to walk into these left hands. Jacqueline Calvacanti's undefeated in the UFC right now, has tremendous volume, and yet hustles up a split decision over the basis of these torpedo left hands look good every time she lands them. She can fight a full 15 minutes. You don't have to worry about her getting submitted because I feel bad saying this. I always feel bad saying this. She got no neck, man. Like her up to her shoulder, she's 5'1" and her head's a foot. And that's the 5'2" of her. She has no neck. So punching her is very tough because she's 5'2" and she comes in all tucked in like and then spams these overhand missile lefts over and over and over and over and over again. It's amazing. I love it. If you can throw high volume or you can take her down, you're going to be a problem. Cachoeira, I don't think is either of those things. You've seen her get out hustled in the past. Uh, I just feel like it's a fight where they're both going to have moments, but the bigger moments are going to be coming consistently from Josias Nunes. Fights as a southpaw, probably going to be landing that shot. I don't think Cachoeira takes her down. That's Cachoeira's biggest vulnerability is being taken down. So Nunes is not shooting takedowns. Let's just erase that off the table altogether. What makes Cachoeira better, just straight up striker than Josias Nunes? I'm not necessarily seeing it. Nunes has been more competitive against bigger, stronger girls. I would think this is going to be one of those spots. So you look at Jung Ying Kim versus Priscilla Cachoeira. She easily loses the first two rounds. Ah, she's losing the entirety of the third round. There's like 90 seconds left, and she just starts crashing her with these elbows. And it's like suddenly it's like there's a lot of blood and it looks really good, and they give her that fight. But she's getting outworked. She's getting out hustled, and that's a straight up striking battle. Since then, people have been exposing her, taking her down. But I think if you just give her a straight up striking battle, she's still there to get outworked. So yeah, she got to win over Ariane Lipski. I'll rate that one for her. Outside of that, I mean, she's just kind of always been there to catch a beating, which is largely what she does. Josias Nunes is younger than her. She's fighting a smaller, on paper, bigger opponent, but really the smallest opponent she's had to fight in quite some time. Chelsea Chandler's huge. Jacqueline Cavalcanti's huge. They're fair and awful, but huge. She's a 45er. Ramona Pasquale, woof, but a
Took her down three
45er.
times. Maybe,
I
maybe
know.
Cachoeira.
Numbers,
Maybe
but look at the numbers she puts up.
she's put in time with her boy Colby Covington. I'm sure you've seen like social media posts of them two together. Maybe all of a sudden Cachoeira catches a couple takedowns. Wouldn't that change things? I don't. I mean, I wouldn't
I'm
count on that
disappointed in Colby.
whatsoever. I wanted a better number. I wanted a better number. I mean, the reason that I like that, the only reason I would be betting this is that like I feel peer pressured, Cody. I feel like I have to back my girl all the way to the bitter end. We're almost at the bitter end. This is the matchup for her to get back on track. That's really all I have to say
Yeah,
about that.
I take your word on it because I will say Paul Shaughnessy was the Vince Pichel whisperer, and he got 14 and 15 Vince Pichel fights, win or lose, right? And then Tatiana Suarez whisperer got all of her wins, calls her loss. Shoot it to me straight, brother. Is she going to win? Feels like you're caught in this weird neutral zone where you don't really want to commit to
I
it.
just
So
bet her as a
the,
big
the
dog in
the the
like
plus money's not good enough for me to say Cachoeira, so I got to stick with Nunez.
yeah, maybe we'll see what happens later on in the week. I mean, I'm sure I'll have something on it. Is it going to be like a massive play? Do I think I have a big edge? No. Sometimes you just want something to cheer for, Cody.
Yeah, this is
And
good to see. I'm here for it.
also, I'm kind of I feel a little bit slighted that you're going with Josian. here, but that'll just
Shoey
make
bet. Taking a
that'll
shoey
just
bet.
no, no,
What? You don't even
no.
want to take a shoey bet on it? So you
My
have no
heart,
confidence, is what
my
you're
heart,
saying.
my heart will be broken. My heart will be broken. I don't need to be drinking alcohol.
You're the
Um,
worst.
we don't need to be doing anything like that. All right, finally, we got Carly Judas taking on Eunice Dubin. Minus 435 for Judas. Dubin can be had for plus 335. I dropped in the Patreon, or sorry, in the Discord a few days ago. Some people got the plus 400s that were there on like the American legal markets, legal sports books. So Dubin, interesting kind of story. I mean, her earlier tape before that Contender Series fight, like so low level. Maybe not like Jim. Who's the fighter that fought in like Argentina? Your girl who you thought was
Tamaris
gonna be
Vidal?
Tamaris Verdal
Oh yeah.
versus
Yeah, that's
that
Samurai though. It's the same organization. The other kid
was
that's
it the
fighting
same organization?
that Vallejos, Kevin Vallejos, I
No, I'm
think.
talking about Dubin. Dubin's from like Venezuela. I think
Right,
her
but it's
fights.
lower level than that Samurai show.
No, the one
Oh,
that's
okay.
like in the garage between like Tamaris Vidal and
Yeah.
the big butt wrestler.
Oh yeah,
Your
yeah,
baby.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Aline Perez,
Eileen Perez. That fight was
future
like
world champion.
the lowest level of like production quality. A lot of those fights earlier for her, very, very low level of production quality. She came in to Contender Series as a 10-1 underdog against Shannon Clark. Shannon Clark, who has went on and won her last fight, I believe, claiming a regional belt at LFA.
LFA. Well, she was the LFA champ, and then she
Yeah,
got KO'd on Contender Series, and then she went back and defended the LFA title. So, like,
yeah.
Shannon Clark's really not bad. That's a quality win when you think about it.
So Dubin, apparently Dana White, you can see the clips online. Dubin, they brought her in. They didn't know if she was gonna come because she was flat broke. Apparently, like the workers were like going out and buying food for her because she literally didn't have a cent to her name. Comes in 10-1 underdog and absolutely flatlines this girl. Gets the job or gets the contract. And then now for this camp, she's been in Colorado training with Rose Namajunas, Miranda Maverick, all of that type of stuff. I took a shot plus 355. I didn't have the plus 400s available to me. One, CF dot model Cody. Two, I look at Carly Judas's fights and they're definitely against a higher level of competition. Don't get me wrong. I get it. I get, she's 3-2, but it's like those two losses are coming against pretty good opponents, and those fights were very, very competitive. Don't get me wrong. Um, but I see somebody who gets hit a lot. Both of her fights got hit over 100 times. Ernesta Caracate landed like 181 significant strikes, totally different body type, everything like that. I get it. And then Gabriela Fernandez, who's coming off of obviously that Wang Kong win, which I suppose in hindsight looks
Looks
pretty
good.
pretty darn good. But it's like after round two in that fight against Gabriela Fernandez, she's got like her face is looking pretty roughed up. All I'm saying is we're smoking the Dubin over here, buddy. If we open up the card, I threw a half unit on it. Am I gonna go broke if it loses? No. If they want to give me the plus 400s again, I'll throw another half unit on it. But as it stands right now, we're opening the card with a dogger pass. I'm thinking we've got somebody who's hungry. Some of that early tape doesn't look all that great. Don't get me wrong, but undefeated and has been finally put into a situation where it's like this is probably the first legitimate camp that she's ever had with like legitimate UFC level fighters. And I was going through her Instagram, went all the way back, and she's been training in like wushu since like 2015. So it's like since she was like a kid, I guess she's been training in martial art at least in some way, shape, or form. The information on her is obviously very, very fuzzy, but when you have a long shot underdog in women's MMA, I'm willing to take the risk. What's your take here?
Yeah, this is why the CF dot model has proven to be the most lucrative thing in MMA betting. It's like you don't have to win them all the time, but you get offered these crazy plus money price tags, and they figured to be close. I will say with Judas is that both of her fights on the Contender Series, or one fight in Contender Series, one fight in the UFC. It's a very high volume. She's
Hmm.
landing tons. She's mixing in takedowns and she's losing these split decisions. So there's something about her style that it's going to be close, it's going to be competitive. And when you're betting at this kind of price tag, it doesn't make sense. Dubin, when you look at a regional show tape on her, she doesn't seem to be at this level. One would have to think in a 15-minute hard fought fight that she probably doesn't have this cardio. But as Paul said, you got someone that's impoverished, coming from a poor area, South American, very strong, has the desire to improve themselves, but comes over the apex broke, has people buying food for them, wins a fight, KO of the year for Dana White's Contender Series women's
Hmm.
MMA fight standards, but she absolutely stiffed a legitimate opponent. She's got power. Now you give her a full camp in Colorado. Cardio probably figures to be better. Technique figures to be better. Why isn't she live here? And it's like as much as I'm taking Judas and I'm sticking by Judas, it's like all week I've had this nagging suspicion that Judas was gonna
Are you
betray me. It's
smoking
like
the Dubin with me?
I don't know, man. I just keep thinking to myself, like, Judas is gonna betray me. Judas is gonna betray me. Like, and it just keeps coming up in my head. And it's like, you know what? Forget it and just roll with Judas. But the last time someone did that, it got Jesus killed. I just don't know that I'm willing to throw all my eggs in the basket for first fight on the card women's MMA. So the line is just far too big for a women's MMA fight that figures to be close. Now, I think along the same lines as you, probably because we've just spent too much time together. Is like, damn, she was competitive with Gabriela Fernandez, who goes and beats Wang Kong and fought Jasmine Jasudavicius and actually really isn't all that bad. So, she's losing these splits, but in another world, she beats Ernesta Karataka. In another world, she may have gotten that split decision in her most recent performance against a quality enough opponent in Gabriela Fernandez. So, is she better than Dubin that has one moment versus two really good, grueling fights that happen to not go your way? I got to roll with it, but if it comes back to bite me in my ass, what I did to myself, right?
So you're taking all three women's favorites. Pat
Man,
Mayo. Pat Mayo would be
I would be disappointed.
absolutely shaken with rage
Well,
with that type of attitude.
of the three, I like Sam Hughes the most, but I'm going with Stephanie Luciano. And of the three, I like Josias Nunes the most. The price makes sense, and I got a soft spot for her, man. She's like the non-grappling version of
Like Bibby.
Verna Jandaroba, where it's like if I'm in a bar fight, that's who I'm picking to be next to my side. You know what I'm saying? If I'm at the prom, possibly not. But if I need some ass to be kicked, like these who are I'm saddling up with for sure. Josias Nunes just spams overhand lefts. But there's a je ne sais quoi to her that I actually do admire. And I think she rolls up. Dubin, you're cheering for on a personal level, but Judas, it's like you're the most talented 3-2 fighter I've seen. So both of them deserve it. Dubin versus I said this earlier, I will mention this. Dubin is 6-0 and was a 10-1 underdog, won on the Contender Series to get here. So she really shouldn't be in the UFC. Juice is 3-2 as a pro. She should not be in the UFC. But beyond that, these are all LFA fights, the whole card. Elizeu Zaleski versus Chidi and Njokuani, that could headline an LFA card. Alexander
Hmm.
Hernandez versus Kurt Holobaugh, I'm pretty sure I've watched worse fights than that headline LFA cards. Blackshear versus Cody Gibson, it screams LFA headliner.
Yeah.
Nurgozhay, Brendson, Ribeiro. Outside of the main event, this is a regional show card in every sense of the word.
Brother,
And this very
that's
first fight on the card, Carly Judas versus Dubin, it's exactly that. It's what you would expect to see as the second or third fight on a LFA type card. So we've often talked about these shitty little fight nights, Paul, that are like, oh, it's hard to get an edge, and there's so much that could go wrong. It's like these ones that fly under the radar, we've historically done good at, and all I can do is knock on wood, hope that statement ends up being true, and hope that the right fighters get their hand raised come Saturday.
yeah, it's new era, bro. Like if you do enough like regional tape, you watch enough of these regional promotions. I mean, not all regional promotions are built equal, but it's like ACA. ACA, you put some of those bantamweights up against Blackshear and Cody Gibson in Moscow, Russia, or even worse, in Grozny, Chechnya. Those guys are Cody and Blackshear are getting rolled up over in Russia. That may be a crazy statement. Some people think that, dude, go watch some tape on like lower weight classes in ACA. Those guys are absolute murderers over there. There's a reason why a lot of these American guys later on in their career, they go over there, they're like, an extra contract, fight a few more times, and they get absolutely smoked. There's something different in the water or something different in their vitamins over in
Yeah.
Russia. But
Well, if you're lasting 18 seconds versus
Montel Jackson.
yeah, Montel Jackson, 18 seconds versus him. Wait until you go over to Russia and you realize that there's 10 Chechnyan Montels out there. It's like,
Yeah.
oh man,
Yeah,
it could hit
Saifullah
just as
G
impressive.
Jabulov or something like that. I bet
Yeah.
him on the last one. That guy's like top 10 in the world right now, and nobody knows his name. But
Well, he tries to get a visa and they stamp denied on it. And so that he fights in the mountains of Chechnya and is part of a Chechen death squad. But yeah, you wouldn't want to mess with these guys. I here's what you're saying. There's quality guys all over the place, but the UFC, because they have so many shows and they have the contender series and they're obligated for certain amount of fights, and they've got streaming platforms and they've got television exclusive deals and they've got social media exclusive crap, and there's so much going on that they'll just sign anybody. But that doesn't mean you have to bet on it, because I like having action on every fight. I bet everything. But don't feel like there's a real big edge in some of these low quality. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you can point out massive flaws in every fighter on this card.
yeah,
It's different when it's like, hey, these are top 10 fighters, top 15 fighters. Oh, they have 10 fights in the UFC. Oh, we know everything about them. There's a lot of your jumping into the unknown of, well, I think Kevin Vallejos has a good ground game, or I think he should be able to get back up, and I think Blackshear should be able to hold position and use an active guard to get up against Cody Gibson if need be. And I think these older fighters should gas out, but it's a little bit of a shot in the dark. But anyways, to wrap it up for you, yeah, I would say between this card, the Toughen Up, the CFFCs, and two Cage Warriors, plenty of betting opportunities. Don't feel like you need to overextend yourself in any one spot.
100%. All right, we're just about out of time. Before we go, hit him with the PRP kid.
Yeah, PRP, it could be Dog City, and you could bet so many more underdogs, but I'm okay with the ones I'm taking. Roman Delete's dog number one, Chidi Njokuani, dog number two. I am going to go Alexander Hernandez, Damon Blackshear, Diyar, Nurgozhay. I really don't think he's that good. But anyways, I will take him. Kevin Vallejos, I'm taking. Waldo, Cortes-Acosta. Live bet that one. You'll get a much better line, I think. AJ Cunningham, dog number three. Josias Musasa, Stephanie Luciano, André Lima, Josias Nunez, and Carly Judice. I don't even know if it's Judas or Judice. It could be one of the other. It feels like every time they call a fight for it, it seems to change. But 12 fights, three or four underdogs at the bare minimum. Wait for weigh-ins. Paul and I will hit you up with another weigh-in show, just to, certain guys are moving up a weight class like Ryan
Well,
Spann.
we
Certain.
won't hit we won't hit you. We'll hit them. We'll hit the
Oh,
we'll
yeah,
hit the
yeah. Yeah,
Patreon,
yeah, yeah.
Cody.
You are people are on YouTube. Now, we appreciate your
Hmm.
guys' like and support as always. But if you care about post weigh-in thoughts, if you care about prop picks, if you care about anything that's happening on the regional side of things, then yeah, feel free to join us over on Patreon in the Discord chat. If not, these are likely the picks that I'm going to lock in. But of course, I will tweet out the official PRP come Saturday, and if anything changes, you could obviously see it there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. That is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Jared and Cody Saptic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.